My rules, big moves. Y'all heavy on the tweeting. I'll disappear a whole season like, who said they looking for me? I'ma make you wait for it. Count down for me. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to Hold My Heels, the power of unapologetic living. I'm even more Dr. Ajax at this point, and I'm excited that you're here. I know last week's episode was a little wild. It sounded like I was in the back room of a party, but I wasn't. Someone was having the best Cinco de Mayo party of their life, and I was here for it. I am a little disappointed they didn't offer me a chip or anything, but this week it should be a tad bit quieter. So if you are all over the Twitter, you got to experience the wild and crazy times at Ridgemar High or congressional hearings and dealing with representatives. Our good sis, Representative Jasmine Crockett, masterfully handed an inferior woman the greatest jab I have ever heard. Usually when inferior people throw jabs, they are not quick on their feet, but I lived for the fact that after being insulted, Representative Crockett was like, first of all, you bleach blonde, bad built body person. Like, I love it. And then to hear AOC be like, oh girl, baby girl, please. Like, I live for like every 30 minutes, I am literally screaming one of those phrases out or saying, say what now? Because it was epic and sad all at the same time. I really believe that Jasmine and AOC ate down with the FAFO. I'm not going to say that out loud because, it's a bad word. But of course, Bleach Blonde and her friends are now playing victim and participating in the professional struggle Olympics. That respectability is literally kicking them in their ill-shaped behinds. And when lots of people came online and they were like, Jasmine body shamed and she used transphobic and homophobic language. And I really love how Black women are held to the purity politics more than anybody else. And it was like, we can be called ghetto, we can be called trash, we can be called sexual innuendos and just things done to us, and we're just supposed to be like, I'm gonna be so sad about it. And it's like we're never allowed to fight back. And I love that Jasmine decided that she was gonna fight back. And women of MTG's affinity group will always attack minority women with thinly veiled and coded dog whistles, and I think it's about time that we start giving them back what they deserve. Now, what really interested me was that we could see stereotype threat playing out in real life as Representative Crockett was told that she was yelling and needed to relax and calm down after her appearance was literally attacked for her asking, are we not going to stay on task here? Like, you're bringing up something, MTG was bringing up something that had nothing to do with why they're there and what they're supposed to be doing, but it's like this disruption to getting things moving and to doing the actual work is always the go-to when they want attention. So I also noticed how, Comer allowed her, Representative Crockett, to continue to be disrespected and allowed MTG to continue to push being against the professional standards, going against the Roberts Rule of Order, continuously talking over people, just all of the things that she was doing that nobody ever said anything to her, while everyone consistently tried to reprimand Representative Crockett and AOC in many ways. And I was very upset because it was like we got to see what happens to Black women on a daily basis at some of the highest levels of interaction and with people that we elect to do good work for us, but they go and they are, not who they're supposed to be. I do love that Representative Crockett stood with a few co-conspirators in the moment. But there were tons of performative allies after the fact that were just doing things for sound bites and quick quotes. And I want us to remember that this is familiar. Like, no matter what level you're on, this is what people do. I think a lot about how when something happens in meetings at work, non-marginalized people will come to me after the meeting, or I'll see them go to other members of marginalized groups and be like, oh, I saw what happened and I'm so sorry. And next time it happens, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to say something. But in that moment, it's like, no, I need you to say something in the moment when it happens. I don't need you to come to me and talk to me about it. Or if you are really feeling a way, why not go and talk to them and tell them how they were out of order and how they didn't do what they were supposed to do and how what they did was racist or what they did was unnecessary. Instead of going to the victim, go to the person who perpetrated, go to the person who is doing wrong and correct them. Don't go and try to, oh, I'm going to be your ally. You're actually not. And that's okay. But let's relax. So this week, I want to really talk about some things that have been on my mind. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been thinking a lot about workplace allyship, co-conspirators, and disruptors, and the trauma responses that Black women have in order to cope with feeling alone and either under-supported or unsupported in the workplace. I've seen a lot of people's true colors since January of this year in my own personal life, and it has put me in a place of retrospect. Thinking about people that I consider to be allies, considering people that I thought had my best interests at heart, that people who cared about me. And so it's been really heavy. And when this event occurred between our elected officials, it solidified my desire to discuss these things. So today's episode, we're going to delve into how care and concern are absent in many of the workplaces in regards to Black women. Now, I know you're like, sis, you are stretching it. How is care and concern tied into systemic racism? And I'm going to tell you two words: performative allyship, or some people call it performative activism. It happens every day, and typically we just pass it off as people being faker than a Louis Vuitton on DH Gate. So it's really a problem, and it is really a way that the world manipulates and pushes Black women down in spaces and other marginalized groups. Being performative doesn't support anything that needs to happen in real life. People need people who are there on their side. They need people who are willing to go the extra mile for them. They're needing people who are willing to stand up and be like, full stop. So y'all know I love a good definition. So I like to establish common language. So we're going to get into it. I'll begin with the Merriam-Webster definitions. They say that care implies oppression of the mind, weighed down by responsibility, or disquieted by apprehension. And concern implies a troubled state of mind because of personal interest, relation, or affection. So after reading that, I was still like, well, what exactly do those words mean? So I was like, I'm going to go to the Oxford Learner's Dictionary. And here they identify both as a noun. Care and concern are nouns. And they say that care is the process of protecting someone or something and providing what they need, and attention is given to something or someone important. While concern is a feeling of worry about something important or something that causes the feelings of worry. So I still felt that these just weren't giving everything that needed to be given in the moment. So I went into some sociology text and did a quick bit of Googling. And this is what I came up from a few sociology related websites and research papers. Really and truly, there's no site here. It's just some collective summarization from multiple sources. So the sociological definition of care is care refers to the activities and practices involved in maintaining the physical and emotional well-being of dependent individuals, such as children, the elderly, or those with disabilities. So I'm starting to notice a pattern here. I hope that you're also starting to notice a pattern with care. Now, concern in a sociological context, it refers to the awareness and engagement with social issues that affect communities or groups. Sociological concern is often about recognizing systemic issues and advocating for social change to address them. So, sitting with those three definitions, I was like, these are very serious, and I feel like they need to be broken down even more into more layman's terms. So this is what I came up with. Care basically requires a sense of responsibility towards somebody or something, right? It suggests that there is an active role in trying to improve someone. You are basically maintaining and attending to someone or something, right? You are thinking about somebody else and you are trying to do the best by them, and you feel a sense of responsibility to help them. While concern is a state of worry or anxiety about someone and has an emotional attachment to it. And sometimes it can motivate action, but it usually focuses on a feeling of unease or apprehension rather than the act of providing help or support. So think of it this way. When you care about someone, you are kind. And when you are concerned, you are nice. Remember that kind means you are doing something without getting anything back. And nice means you are getting something out of it, typically people pleasing for the gram. And I know you've heard of people being described as kind and caring because those two things go hand in hand because it's about other people and not self. Now, when we think about care and concern and how it is applied in a sociological way, we can see how it can definitely be performative in regard to the feelings of safety of minorities. So, doing my research, I came across some things that I want to share with you. As you become more familiar with performative allyship, you're going to wonder, how does performative allyship support systemic racism? And there are several ways. 3 of those ways are, that they damage trust, it invokes cynicism, and it strengthens the cycle of structural and instructional racism. So I want you to think about how performative allyship, it's all smoke and mirrors. It makes you feel icky. It makes you feel like, this just seems like we're just doing this to check boxes to be compliant. So in a thesis paper entitled Examining the Motivations Behind Performative Allyship, Selena Keys-Kokorska lays out these motivations. She says, lack of authority, when those in power speak about a cause, but their actions are superficial and only benefit their public image, that's a motivation. Another motivation is diversion of resources. They participate or speak out regarding a cause to capture media attention or public will, like awards that lift them up as great supporters of the marginalized or humanitarians, which takes away resources that can do real work to address systemic and structural issues in their organizations. And then it's a reinforcement of stereotypes. Performative allyship provides surface level solutions like inadequate diversity training that does not touch on the systemic issues at hand. So people are constantly bombarded with negative issues and biases that further solidify implicit bias. So lots of times organizations will do lots of work around implicit bias and want to talk about, doing the work from within, but they never talk about how the systems that they work in and the systems that they're doing the training in actually uphold systemic racism and harm people on a consistent basis. And then the last one they talk about is a minimal impact to systemic changes, right? So you're propping up superficial policies or processes that never identify, denounce, and rectify systems and structure that further inequalities. So when you have one or all of these motivations, you see performative allyship when there are words being done, but the actions either don't align or the actions are counter to what's being said or what's supposed to be happening. It does invoke mistrust. Like you feel like, oh, these people do not care. This is another day where we're going to sit in a room together and people are going to, talk about surface level cultural differences. They're going to talk about people's hair. They're going to talk about, the foods we eat. They're not going to get into our beliefs, our systems around what parenting looks like, what education looks like for different marginalized groups. They're not going to go into real ethnic understanding. It is going to be all surface level. If you need a visualization, you can think about that picture where they do like a iceberg and it's like the tip of the iceberg is all surface stuff. And then underneath the water is all the things that really put people into ethnic categories or cultural groups, because as you know, a lot of people may identify as a culture, but not actually participate in that culture, or they might be an ethnicity, but they don't participate in the cultures of that ethnicity. Now, I also want you to think about back when DEI positions were being created left and right, and it was a huge and profitable place for the right people. And there were allies as far as the eyes can see. Like DEI jobs were popping up, and it was people who had never even spoken the words DEI, but they were being provided jobs and spaces. And many marginalized groups and leaders stated that, the non-marginalized individuals were being placed in positions that were supposed to provide structural and systemic change for equality, equity, inclusion, and diversity, but they didn't have the basic foundation to do any of that work effectively. It was just compliance, or it was those jobs that we all like to see where it's you've earned the job, you've done something in a position for so long, and somebody in leadership is like, you know what, this is my friend, they've earned it, I'm going to put them into this position because it's a cushy position. It's not going to be a lot of work that they have to do, and they're a nice person, so I feel like they can do it. And I mean, they have Black friends, so they definitely believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So that was a little facetious. Pray for me. Now, I want to provide a definition and provide an example at the same time. And I usually do this through my leaning on the Association for Behavior Analysts International, or ABA. They defined what performative allyship was in a set of emergency papers or publications that they put out in 2022. Because they wanted to help practitioners of applied behavioral analysis take immediate action to figure out how to address police brutality and systemic racism and how to help people navigate that system. Out of the series, I have one that's my favorite in particular. It's entitled ABA While Black: The Impact of Racism and Performative Allyship on Black Behaviorists in the Workplace and on Social Media. It was written by Melody Sylvan, Ashley Knockle, Denisha Gingles, and Robin Gantgis. These women wrote this publication basically because it was like white behavioral analysts were doing a lot of performative social media activism, or they were asking lots of questions and leaning into Black behavioral analysts to support them and to grow them and to give them information instead of them using their resources in order to grow in their allyship. And so they defined performative allyship as expressing verbal or overt support for a marginalized community without contributing to direct and measurable changes. So we've all had to do a SMART goal before, right? It's got to be something that you can measure. It's got to be something that's attainable. It's got to be something that you can, do in an amount of time, and something, if people are doing allyship work or social justice work and there are no measurable changes, it's performative. They've done nothing but talked. And so they went on in this publication to state that while, behavior in performative allyship, you want to make sure that, true allyship is when you're involving yourself in identifying as a supporter of a particular group. But you have to be careful that it doesn't lead to rule-governed behavior or respectability politics, right? You can't act that way because it will make you look bad, or you can't do this because it'll make you look bad, or it's just whitewashing cultures or whitewashing movements, because that ultimately maintains structural racism. And this typically occurs because the allies' verbal behavior is receiving reinforcement from society. Like they're getting pats on the back, that a girl, you're doing a great job. I see that you're doing so much for AYZ community, right? Now, even though what they're doing doesn't result in any meaningful reductions in racism, they're still being applauded for their work. So like in essence, performative allyship is more about adhering to social rules and appearing supportive than making a genuine impact, right? So I want you to think about that. If behavior analysts, people who have committed their lives to researching and discussing and trying to bring awareness to what behavior looks like, if they have to create publications to tell other non-marginalized behavior analysts, don't do that, don't be performative, what does that say about the core of who many people are in hard situations? So I just want you to sit with that for a second. I want you to sit with how even the people who should know better don't do better in a lot of cases. Another one of my favorite scholars, just recently, because she just published this in 2023, is Selena Keys-Kukurska. I'm sure I'm butchering that, and I apologize. She goes on to highlight the work of Kutlika and Ratke, who state that performative allyship is associated with engaging in specific behaviors for the individual's own self-gain and have no inclination towards the goal of equality. So I bring us back to niceness. Remember, niceness is about you doing something because you want to get something out of it, not you doing something because you want to be helpful and not get anything in return. And she also goes on to talk about how white guilt can be a major factor in performative allyship, which is spurred by guilt, shame, and fear. And it motivates an individual into allyship, which typically can form into performative allyship because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want people to not think that you're not down with the cause. And so, I want you to think about the use of Black Lives Matter signs in the summer of 2020, and how storefronts and people who lived in downtown areas, they put these signs up in their yard, pride flags and all this kind of stuff. And they were they never came out and said anything, but it was they have it out, and people started finding out that businesses and homes did this because they didn't want to be vandalized or they didn't want to be boycotted, but they didn't actually believe in anything that they were saying. And you can also think about how on social media, it was really hip to put a black square for your Facebook profile, or it was to put, something on your Instagram or your Facebook to show that you stood in alignment or with somebody as an ally, but nothing else that you did showed that you were actually an ally. She concludes her thesis by stating that performative allyship is the easy way out, and ultimately it's harmful to disadvantaged groups, while it hinders self-reflection and learning of the advantaged group. So pretending to do something is worse for you than it is for the people around, because the people who it's meant for, they see through it very quickly. I have a friend who says, I don't go to McDonald's for the smells, I go for the food. So if you're going to show up to be an ally, actually be an ally. Don't just go through the motions. Now, in thinking about the individuals that Selena did a lot of her researching with, I went in and looked at Maja Kutlaka's and Helena Ratke's work entitled Towards an Understanding of Performative Allyship, Definition, Antecedents, and Consequences. And they provide more nuanced motivations for performative activism or allyship. So they said that to act upon your humanitarian values, you're performing, activism or performative activism or allyship, but it's also, to enhance your self-esteem. It's to pursue experiences that will benefit your career. You'll gain further knowledge and skills. You are there to enlarge your social network. You're there to escape your own internal struggles. And then you have a selfish pursuit of satisfying your need for social worth. And all of those things share the commonality of directing attention to self and away from the needs of the disadvantaged group. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next episode on allyship, because I wanted to give the non-example first and then give what the example should look like. But we'll delve into that more. So I want us to think about how tacky performative allyship is, and that it is always about the person getting their flowers or getting attention instead of them actually helping other people who may be marginalized or who may be in a place of need. So I'm going to bring us to two experiences today. You're lucky you get two experiences today. The first one, earlier this week, I witnessed an incident that put a few people in an unsafe position, right? There was a perpetrator victim. That's what we're going to call them because they are a victim and they were perpetrating this incident. There was a protector, the person who actually was in this space in a position to make change and to help support the person. And then there were bystanders, us just being around. So we see this incident and it's a little jarring because it's not something that happens very frequently in the workplace because we are so far removed from interaction with a lot of people. So typically the people that I interact with on a daily basis, I see them every day. So when new characters are introduced into our area, it's always interesting just to be able to talk to new people or to be able to see things and experience things. So after this particular incident that it was dangerous in some ways because people could have gotten hurt, but no one was. It was well contained and the protector did a really good job in doing their job. So after the incident, another bystander walked up to a group of us. It was me and two other people. And she provides her view of the situation. So she basically gossips about, oh, this is what I saw happen. And then she says, and I quote, "I feel bad for them." So I look her in the face and I asked, "For who?" And she stuttered and then gave a weak answer. And I asked for who because I wanted to know who she was playing ally for. Was it the perpetrator victim? Was it the protector? Or was it bystanders? I was genuinely interested in her response because she had not shown care or kindness in multiple situations that I had interacted with her. So it seemed really performative in the moment. And so her answer was basically like, "I feel sorry for the perpetrator victim, not the protector or the bystanders who were around who could have been hurt, but for this person who was not keeping a space safe, not doing what they were supposed to do." She felt sorry for them. And so as she continued to explain, you could tell that it wasn't her having care for this person. It was about concern for her. And so, as she talked, I realized that she did not care at all. She really and truly just wanted to gossip about what she had just seen. And she wanted to try to provide us with information she felt like we may not have. Like she felt like she had something to give that we didn't see, but we were all standing there together. Her conversation was completely centered from a place of concern because she was never going to take any action. She was not going to provide any support, but she wanted to share her emotional response to somebody else's pain in that moment. To outsiders, she appeared as an ally. She appeared as, she's showing really, she is concerned, she's showing care, sorry. But as she continued to talk, we were all like, oh yeah, no, she don't care. And, she was like, "I just feel bad for them." And it was disgusting. For me, I won't speak for the other people, but for me, it was disgusting to see and to hear. And I truly believe she walked up to us so that she could enlarge her social network and try to make a connection with us based off of this shared experience, right? And her tone, her demeanor, the words all said that she pitied someone. And if you're not familiar with what pity means, it is a way that you recognize someone else's distress and you feel sympathy for them, but it does not include it doesn't include that you want to help them. And you typically do it from a place of superiority or detachment. That's why Mr. T said, "I pity the fool," because he did not pity the fool that was going to run up and get done up. He pitied that they were stupid enough to do it. So he sat in a place of superiority, knowing that if they run up, they're going to get folded like a cheap suit. So that's why he said, "I pity the fool." So in this moment with this young lady, it was just like, I thought it was there and it wasn't. one of my group mates has a belief that we should inspect everything, that nothing should be taken at face value, because presuming positive intent when we know people don't always come from a positive place is naive. And so we inspected this interaction a lot over the next couple of hours, just kind of coming back to it like, yeah, did you notice this? Did you notice that? And I truly, even after we separated, I thought about this encounter for the rest of the day, because the group that I was standing with had the inclination to immediately help. So much so that I had to grab one of them as they tried to get in the mix. And when I grabbed them, I said, hey, you have to remember, you're no longer certified to help that kind of incident. And you could either get hurt somebody, or get in trouble for assisting. So you can't do that. We are no longer at the level where we can do that type of work. The only type of work we can do is we can get out of the way and allow people to do their jobs so that nobody gets hurt and that people are safe. And it was hard in that moment. And one of the other people in the group, continued to talk about how in the moment we didn't flinch, right? When it first occurred, we stood there, and then, we wanted to get into action, as we saw that it was getting a little bit more escalated. But a lot of times you have to sit back and you have to watch and you have to say, is this a place for me to get involved, or is this a place where I'm going to end up being hurt more than the person who is in trouble right now? So now I'm going to get into the second story. And the second story is really about, it has to do with me. And I'm going to be a little cryptic at times because the situation is still going on. But it is real time live. I am transitioning out of a role where I supervise many people. And part of my position was to advocate for them. I believe as a leader, my job is to always show more care for the people that I am tasked with leading and supporting, because that's the job of a leader. The job of a leader is to not just guide, but also to strengthen and protect. And so my position was dissolved in February. And immediately, many of the people in the group that I supervise were extremely happy. They didn't like me. Accountability is a bad word. And holding people accountable when they've never had to be accountable is hard. And my position was basically a big part of organizational change, and change is hard for people. And so there was lots of grief and lots of fighting because control was lost, new control was given, directives and the such. So in the months since February, I have been very hands off. I feel that because of my position being dissolved, there is very little that I should be involved in with the larger group. We are going through lots of changes right now. And so lots of things are happening. So I met with this group of individuals that I supervise, and I said to them, I can't be involved in any of this. I believe that after 3 years of advocating for you all and coming to you and telling you exactly what I was thinking and where I was going and what could be happening, that you all have a good foundation right now in order to advocate for yourselves. And I explained to them some pitfalls that they would experience if they didn't. I said, if you all go into this as a disjointed group, they are going to play against that, and it is not going to be beneficial at all. It is definitely going to divide you as a group. It's going to hurt many people, and it's not worth it. So come together as a group, figure out what it is that you want, how you want it, and how you're going to advocate for it, and how you're going to have one voice. So I tasked a person who I feel has the ability to be a great leader with creating a group chat, because I do believe in her ability to be a good leader, and I can see that she will have the capacity to be a good leader at some point. but she has to get out of her own way. She has to stop being concerned about things so that she can get something out of it and start to think about the larger group and have care and kindness towards others. This person has talked about me and tried to turn people against me, saying that some of the decisions that have been made in recent weeks is because I'm pushing for them, things that I would never push for, things that I would never want to happen to this group of people that I supervise because of the belief I have about the role that they play in education. Talking to people about, just be careful because, Amy will tell on you. She's using everything we say against us. And Amy is not, because at this point, Amy doesn't care anymore because Amy's not involved in making decisions. If Amy's position was dissolved, nobody is listening to Amy. Nobody. The people I supervise are not listening to me. The people who supervise me are not listening to me. I mean, it's a catch-22. I am sitting in a position where I am a lame duck. I can't make any policies. I can't do any work. I can't change anything anymore because I've already been told that my value in this organization has reached zero. And so as I thought about care and concern, and I've thought about kindness and niceness, I think about this individual because I have shown great care towards her in my time in this organization, because I could see a lot of me in her. I can remember being a young leader and not really knowing how to navigate the space to get people to follow me in certain situations, and being a little heavy-handed at times and being a little, quick with my mouth. And so I really felt like from the beginning, I would take this person because she ultimately does want to be an administrator, and I would try to guide her so that she would not fall into some of the same pitfalls that I fell into in my leadership journey. But I have quickly come to learn that her interactions with me have always been performative. It has always been a place of trying to figure out how she could game me and get something out of it. And now I'm not naive, and I've been around the block a few times. And so I caught on pretty quick, especially as I provided more space for her to own leadership opportunities and her willingness to throw me under the bus for it. I need people to understand that when you come from a place of caring and kindness, people notice that, and it's more beneficial for you than anything else. And I hope the group that I have supervised for these last 3 years fully understand that at every juncture, I put them before me. I made sure that what they asked me to advocate for was always at the forefront of my thinking. Did I make missteps? Absolutely. Could I have done things better? 100%. But that's life, and that's leadership, and you grow and you continue on. But I have never been malicious. I have never been performative in my activism for them or my advocacy. And I hope that this group gets everything that they've ever wanted and asked for. And I know that they can if they came together and they supported one another, and it wasn't a dog eat dog world in a small group. So as I think about what we've learned this week surrounding performative allyship and activism, I want to bring us back to the idea that when we truly care about other people and we want to show kindness, you act first and think later. And many times we do that. We say, oh, I'm going to help this person, and we don't think about the ramifications that are going to come to us from it. In my advocacy for people who ultimately did not want it, despite the fact that they asked for it, I have learned many life lessons that I will be able to take with me as I move on into my career and into my life, and I appreciate that. I always encourage you to inspect why a person is showing concern for others and truly require them to own their intentions and motivations. So when somebody seems like they are, all of a sudden, they care about you, push them and ask them, for who is this? For who are you doing this for? Why are you doing this? What has changed between yesterday and today and you showing care or concern for me? And we have to always remember it's okay to have big feelings, but it's not okay to allow those big feelings to overshadow marginalized people or victims. It's not okay for those big feelings to be from a place of trying to save yourself and not trying to save a group of people who are being mistreated or who are marginalized. The scholars Sylvan Knockel et al., they concluded that real change requires policy and cultural shifts for equity and social justice. And they defined this by saying that it has to be done and quantified by members of the Black community. Like the Black community or the marginalized community that you are trying to change policy and make cultural shifts for, they have to say this is what it is. You can't do that yourself. When we're trying to end systemic racism and systemic oppression, it takes more than verbal behavior. It requires changing contingencies and creating new environments that like mitigate the experience of racism. So I ask you this week to look back on times that you have performed as an ally. Were you doing it to have just verbal behavior and to get data boys, or were you doing it despite any hindrance on how you were going to be impacted on it? Because if you at any moment said, oh, I'm not going to go this far because this is going to hinder me, or it's going to get me in trouble, or it's going to get me, out of the good graces with somebody, then it was probably performative, and you should think about that. So as you continue to go on and you continue to encounter individuals who represent themselves as allies, I ask that you inspect and investigate every step. So a little housekeeping before I close this out. This series is going to last the next 4 weeks. And then I will have members of my sister circle on, which will play through July, because I will be taking a break for the summer as I embark on a new role. I want to make sure that I'm going into it in a space where I can give it all of the attention it needs. So in August, I will actually come back with guest speakers to kick off the new season. If there's something that you are particularly interested in, that you want to hear or you want to be on the podcast, you can reach out to me via Instagram at hold_my_hills, or you can email me at holdmyhills@amyLjackson.com. Now, girl, remember, every step you take is a testament to your strength and grace. Keep striding forward, hold your head up high, and never forget you've got someone to hold your hills when it's needed. I hope you conquer your world today. Until next time, stay empowered, stay you, and slay in your own personal way.
On my time. Yeah, I'ma make you pay for